Hello, hello, and welcome to Millennial Notebook. My name is Stella,
And my name is Emily.
and here we talk about living life as a millennial in the modern age.
Get comfy, grab your notebook, and let's enjoy the ride together.
Hi! Hi, everyone. Hi, Emily. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I hope all of our listeners are also having a great week. And it's supposed to be Monday if you're listening to this just as it comes out. But if you're listening at any point in the week, we hope you're having a great week and a great day. So, just to start off, let's talk about something random and interesting. What was it? What was it that you wanted to talk about, Emily?
It's the top 5 things you cannot leave the house without. If that made sense.
Yeah. So, are you talking about like if disaster strikes, which would you pick up, or just
Ooh.
like as a general, like your
No.
daily thing?
I'm talking, you cannot leave the house without,
Right. All right. So why don't you start?
Well, mine's easy. I always have to grab my keys, my phone, which is also my wallet. It's got my cards in it.
Okay.
My sunglasses. Mm-hmm. I'm real sensitive to light, so even if it's like really overcast, I have to wear sunglasses.
Yeah.
And then I guess on top of that would be things like making sure I always have a jacket. So even if it's kind of like mildly warm or like quite hot, I always take at least some sort of jersey with me.
Yeah.
And how many was that? Keys, phone, sunglasses, jacket, and then I guess a drink bottle. Yeah.
Oh wow. That's so interesting. Like some of those I would never even think to bring. So yeah, so okay, let me just think of this at the top of my head. So first, keys, my phone, of course, my wallet, and then my Apple Watch, because I pay stuff with that. And I use it to commute. It's very convenient here in Japan. It works as my transportation card, which you add money into. It is wonderful. It's very, very convenient. So, oh no, I only have one left. So let me see. If I only had maybe, I mean, this is such a girly answer, but a lip balm or a lipstick because I look so pale without one, and also my lips chap pretty easily. And I think if I have all of those things, I think I can survive a day out because I don't get cold pretty easily. And because you live in New Zealand, right? But I don't know. Like
we have like 5 seasons in one day. You just do not know what the weather's going to be like. It could be sunny, and then it could like a gust of wind could come past, and you'd be freezing.
Yeah,
So.
I think like so. As we've mentioned in the previous episode, if you haven't heard that yet, we'll mention it again. So Emily and I met in Tokyo, in Japan, and Emily ended up going back to New Zealand, and I am still here in Tokyo. And in Tokyo, it does get windy, but the seasons the weather changes with the seasons themselves. But if you're in a particular season, the temperature doesn't really drop too much. Or even if it does, it's like an obvious one, right? Like when the sun sets, it's obviously gonna, So I don't, and also I get hot pretty quickly. It's not so cold here in Tokyo. So it doesn't really, I think the coldest it can get it would be in winter, right? But that's not also another obvious one.
Yeah,
but
you always
this-
bring a jacket in winter.
Yeah,
Or at least the
yeah.
top layer, eh?
Yeah, the less obvious days like summer, no way am I gonna bring a jacket.
Oh, in summer
It's
I
too
literally wore
hot.
nothing but a really light t-shirt, shirt,
Yeah.
and a pair of shorts. I wore nothing else. I didn't wear. I suppose I did have a jacket or a jersey, but that was like at the
Yeah.
beginning of summer, and man, it was hot. God, it sucks.
It was.
It
And like a bottle of water. So, because the thing is, I mean, I'm trying to lessen this a little bit because, of course, it produces waste, and I'd rather not be participate in that. But, when you just want something hot, like Japan is so convenient that a convenience store is almost at every corner, like every 600 meters, you're gonna encounter a convenience store or what do you call that? Like
a vending machine.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so, for example, if it's a very cold winter that you're facing, you can always get a hot drink And if it's a very a very hot summer, you can always get a cold drink. I know thermoses exist, but I don't know, because I'm always on the go. And if I'm not on the go, I'm at my house. And so I don't really like have something that that I have time. I mean, I tell myself I don't have time to prepare for it, but I can probably work on that. Yeah, I never really like that. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
there's such a that's a very I feel like that's a very Girl Scout, always prepared kind of answer. I think you can survive being stranded in an island, whereas I would be like my phone and my watch will die within like 2 days, and then I'm just gonna die. Yeah, I know, my chapstick. Oh no. All right, so that was interesting. I love that.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, so heading over to the topic for today.
Oh, it's a fun one. I'm so excited.
I don't know if I would label this fun. I have so much baggage with this topic, but this is what this is what we are here for. We are here to talk about the different things that involve just daily things that we encounter in our lives as millennials, but just as people, right? And today, specifically as women, we will be talking about our bodies and how we experience our bodies as women. So we do have a disclaimer on this. So if
do I get to do this one, or do you?
Yeah, yes. Tell us about it, Emily. Like,
all right. I love a disclaimer. Yes, we'll be talking about some triggering topics. If anyone gets very easily triggered about food, bodies, diets, whatever, any of that. We're not going to go into too much detail, but if it does sort of trigger you and upset you, then maybe best to avoid this episode to another time. But yeah, we'll keep it pretty light because, we're only a couple episodes in. But just in case anyone...
Yeah, because we know that these topics can be very triggering, even if we just lightly touch on them. So,
of course,
you can skip this episode if it makes you uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Shall we just dive in? So, women and bodies. I feel like this topic has a lot of subcategories that we can I think we can talk about this for days. And so, this episode is just going to be limited to the general umbrella of women and bodies, and we'll go more specific in future episodes. And some of these, as we've mentioned before, would be like just eating disorders and body and weight issues and how people end up feeling about their bodies. And these are very much heavy topics, and I think we can also speak from experience for some of these topics as well. So we'd reserve that for a different episode. But so today, how about we start on what is average or normal or is expected of women? You know how, I don't know, maybe it's just with my experience, right? And this is, so let's limit it to each of our countries' perspective. So I come from the Philippines. I've lived in Manila for majority of my childhood until university, and then after university I ended up moving to Tokyo, Japan. And I'm pretty sure I'd be interested to know how your experience was as well in New Zealand, right? So how about we limit our topics to each other's experiences in countries, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so why don't you start, Emily?
Right, New Zealand. New Zealand's quite interesting. We have a lot of different types of people. We have Caucasians, the settlers, the colonizers. So that's people from originally from England, maybe America. And then we've got a lot of Pacifica people from Tonga, Samoa, the Pacific Islands. Plus we have our indigenous people, the Māori, who kind of in that same ethnic group. Mm-hmm. And then we have Asians, a lot of whom have migrated from that's like India, Southeast Asia, your China's, your Korea, and your Japan, all those places. So it's a real mixed bag of people, and obviously all those different ethnic groups come with, the their own ethnic lineage, you know. There's a certain expectation, I guess, of what people look like from different parts of the world, right? Asians being a little bit maybe smaller, not necessarily thinner, but, you know, just different builds, you know. And then people from Europe have maybe different bone structures and stuff like that.
Interesting. So would you say that since New Zealand has a bunch of different people, it's a melting pot of different cultures, would you say that there's no general expectation as a whole on women, or is it more, or would you say that there are still expectations, but they're usually limited to your race or your culture?
I think it is a little bit. I think because it is so ethnically diverse, it is a little bit, the expectation of what you should look like is very much heavily influenced by your race, for example. So I think even Asian people living here in, well, you know, Asian descent, mixed, you know, whether or not they're half Caucasian or half Pacifica, half Asian, you know, that creates a whole, what's the word I'm thinking of? When you become more of a mixture, right? It's hard to say, oh, well, you're Asian, so therefore you should be skinnier. Or, you know, oh, you're clearly of Māori descent, or you're clearly of Pacifica descent, you should be, you know, we expect that you'll probably be a bit bigger. It's really hard because it's everyone's, the genes just start to get messy after a while, you know? So you can't...
You're making it sound like people are experiments like this, but...
No, I mean... that sounds really terrible, yeah, no. But it's hard to say what's expected of you. But I guess there is kind of that, well, from I guess, someone's perspective, they look at you and go, oh, you look more Asian, so therefore you being a little bit on the heavy side is like, you're overweight, you know?
So you think...
it depends... When you kind of look at it from a race perspective, it depends on what features are more defining of you.
And that's how people judge you?
Yeah, a little bit. And then they're like, well, you're clearly Asian, so why aren't you smaller, you know?
Interesting.
So there's a bit of that, I think, because even if it is a melting pot, I guess what I'm trying to get at here in a weird way, even though it's a melting pot of people and ethnicities, I think it's just because we're such a globalized society in general around the world. Everyone's there's so much globalization and stuff. There's still an expectation of certain people from certain places have certain body types, and I think that's still perpetuated here. You know, you see it on the media, you see it on TV and stuff. So it's hard to ignore.
I see.
Does that kind of make sense? So I don't think there's like, you know, everyone here should be thin, because I think that's ridiculous. I think everyone here, there's like a medium, like non-descriptive type, which is, you know, you might be a little bit chubby and like, you know, but you're not overweight, you know.
Yeah.
Like everyone's a little bit chubbier because I guess we're quite a lazy society. But then we've got those groups of people that are like gym buffs, and they look amazing and like good on them.
Right.
Yeah.
I see. That's interesting. That is quite contrasting compared to my experience. So in the Philippines, a lot of, I wouldn't say we are, how do you say this? Like, I wouldn't say that we all carry the same values and perspectives, but especially because we were, I don't know, we're still a mix of different types of ethnicities, but not as much as I'd say America or New Zealand or Australia, right? It's still a majority of the people in the Philippines are still Filipino, but we're not as homogenous as, say, Japan or Korea, right? And the Philippines also went through a very long period of colonization for about 300 plus years under the Spanish. Yeah, just history lesson. But I'm mentioning it just because we have a lot of Western influence in our culture because of those several years of colonization. And the last bit of that before the Philippines became an independent country was America, to some degree. I mean, we don't really say that the Americans colonized us, but they did occupy the country for a little bit of time when we got our freedom from Spain. And so since that was the most recent influence, a lot of Philippine culture is also influenced by American media and pop culture. And because of that, I think for expectations of bodies, I think they are, this is just my personal opinion, of course, someone else may say something different, but and from my experience and from my friends' experiences, I would say that it's very driven by the media. So if you know how in when we were growing up in the early 2000s, there was the trend for women's bodies at the time was very skinny. Something that I mean, I don't think this is a word that is, I mean, it's our podcast, right? So there's this term called heroin chic, where women were expected to be super, super thin, like almost like just very, and that's where it's coming from, right? Like heroin chic meaning sickly thin. So that's terrible, but I grew up in that. And things have changed nowadays, right, with the movements, especially in America, to be more inclusive with bodies, to show a little bit more bodies, all types of body types, and also with the whole Kardashian movement with American pop culture, right? So curvy is the new thing. And so to some degree, the Philippines has also shifted in that aspect. But being Asians and being naturally built a little bit smaller than, say, Caucasians or people from the West, there's still that. Oh, would you say like is people
Sorry,
from the West?
I think Caucasian is a New Zealand based.
Really?
I think it's a New Zealand thing.
Shame.
I don't think it's very much used outside of New Zealand in Australia.
Really?
Yeah, or is it something you've come across as well? Like Caucasian just means white. It's just a nice way of saying white.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. But since we're a little bit smaller, we're still Asian. The expectation in general is to be thin, to be small. Like the very first thing that almost anyone, it's changing nowadays, especially with the younger generation, but like I think almost every boomer, excuse me, but every boomer boomer Filipino will always say something about your weight the very first moment they see you, almost like a greeting, right? They'd be like, oh, you lost weight, oh, you gained weight. And the tendency is that, you know, the older you get, the more you gain weight, right? Because it's a natural process of the body, unless you try to stay fit, which I do try, but I'm not, you know, like life has rhythms, and there are days when I just I don't go to the gym just as often, and because of that, you know, your body weight changes. So that's the first comment that anyone will say. And so I'd say because of that, the general expectation is to be, to some degree, either average or thin. But who says what is average anyway, right?
Exactly.
So it's still on the thinner end, I'd say, because if any Filipino, normal sized to thin sized Filipino, tiny Filipino, if they end up going to America, the comment is always that they're so small. And the usual stories would be, after, for example, going to America, we have a lot of a lot of people who end up living, say, in America and Europe, who end up coming back to Manila or the Philippines, and almost every single person will comment about how they've gained weight, which is terrible, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's how you know, right? Like how I suppose if you stay in the Philippines, like you're gonna be policed into staying a certain way, or if you can't, right? Like it's just then how do you deal with that is another thing. But yeah, we can dive into that. So it's just I feel like that's a general expectation, and to some degree in relation to what you mentioned a while ago, your ethnicity as well. We do have Filipino Chinese individuals especially in Manila. We're actually not just, so I come from Manila, so I do have a lot of friends who are Filipino Chinese, and the expectation for them is to be even thinner, because East Asians are in general quite thin, naturally thin. So yeah, I think but they, since a lot of them are naturally thin, and what I mean by naturally thin, right, is that it doesn't take a lot of effort to be a certain
Maintain.
size. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
to maintain it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
actually, my perspective on that was that for Filipino Chinese people, the general expectation for them was to be much thinner than, I suppose, your ethnic Filipino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it, just because we're on the topic and I'm really curious, a
Mm-hmm.
Filipino, would they be, because I know that, are you mixed Spanish blood as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good question.
Because obviously that's Western influence, then obviously.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way because it's so I do have Spanish blood, but so this is from what I heard from my grandmother, and she's not even 100%. I don't know if she's just joking that she's not sure, or I can't really, because whenever I ask her about it, she's just like, yeah, like, and I give, like, and I try to test it, right? I give her several options. How, like, for every single day, I'll ask her a different question. For example, it's our grandfather from so and so generation, right? And I'll change the generation, and she'd always say yes. I'm just like, so which one is it? But so it's in our podcast cover, so you probably have a general idea of how we look like. If I don't look traditionally Filipino, and perhaps this is coming from the Spanish blood that my grandma claims to to have in her family. Supposedly, it's my great 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 grandfather.
Wow.
Pretty far, yeah, but the blood is strong, I suppose, and so I do look like a mix of Asian and Caucasian. I do look like a mix. I've been told that a lot, and I suppose that does play a role in I suppose how my body is naturally gonna be.
Yeah.
It's gonna appear, right, or how much I can maintain it to be a certain way. And maybe that's why, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm big because I'm still pretty tiny, I'd say. I mean, it depends on who's looking, right? But because we'll get to this topic in a little bit later, where in Japan, I don't think I'm tiny in Japan. I think I'm normal in Japan, right?
Yeah.
But if you ship me to America so I can visit some of my family there, they'd be like, you should eat more. So,
Yeah. And I guess that's another thing too, is that diet plays such a big part in how your body will transform over time, right? Depending on if you eat more of a Western diet versus a more Asian diet. And even in the West, it like breaks down even further. So like, the Mediterranean diet versus a Scandinavian diet versus there's so much of that in it as well. And like you say, you go to America, you're the way they look at you and the way your body's going to change is going to be completely different to if you lived in Japan, for example. So
that is true.
I think that's why it's such an interesting thing, because like there is no one size fits all. There never has been, there never will be. But
and there should
women who don't I don't want to say maintain their weight or whatever, but I guess specifically women, I guess. But it doesn't matter what we do. It's like, oh, you're too thin, you're too big, you're not eating enough, you're eating too much, you're your body just naturally changes over time. You generally do get bigger over time, and it's like if you don't maintain the weight that you had as a teenager, oh, there you go, she's gotten fat. It's like, because I have a life and I do lots of things, and my metabolism's not the same.
Yeah, I know, and isn't that just such an unfair statement? Because we all have rhythms, and I'm going through therapy at the moment, and I'm learning to just accept my body throughout the years that pass, right? Through every generation that or any period that I'm gonna be experiencing. And these periods can be as short as a season, right? or as short as, like, for example, when you encounter a breakup or success, like, or radical success in your life, right? Your eating patterns will also shift based on those things.
Exactly.
And so it's so unfair that that we are always expected to look a certain way. So, and it's always just like, oh, you've gotten fatter, you've gotten thinner. Why can't it be a comment on something else? Does it really have to be on that?
Or I wish it wasn't like, oh, you're looking so thin, are you eating well? And it's like,
I know.
no, the weight shouldn't be tied to food. Like,
Exactly.
you could have changed your diet and be on an immaculately great diet, and that's allowed you to lose weight because you're on a calorie deficit, for example. It doesn't mean that you're sick or something like that. But,
I know.
and it's the same with the other way around. Like, if you're eating well and you've someone go, oh, you're getting really fat, and it's like, yeah, because I'm eating really good food. I'm enjoying life. Like, so what of it? I'm not trying to be a model.
Exactly. And also just sometimes, because I have a lot of really good friends who eat very well and are so much healthier than I am. But as we've spoken a while ago, sometimes it's just part of your body makeup, right? Where
Exactly, yeah.
this is the maintaining body status or body shape. And so no amount of let's say, like, I hope this never happens to anyone, but no amount of starving yourself will ever get you to that point, because this is just how your body is. And that's how it is, right?
Yeah.
But sadly, often we see in media that we are kind of expected to fight those natural shapes because of what's on trend at the moment, which is pretty sad. I don't know if in New Zealand you have a lot of, like, are your perceptions of I know you said that it's hugely affected by the culture, right? But are you guys also affected by media and what pop culture is presenting to you?
I mean, yeah, we've got things like Netflix and all of those sorts of things, so we get a lot of American TV, but if we're talking New Zealand media, you've got celebrities. The Bachelor, for example, it's a perfect example of...
Is there a Bachelor for...
Yes, they've had a couple of really successful seasons.
I want
and Bachelorette now too. But
oh my goodness, are they cute? Are they all cute?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like, you're not going to put someone my size on, even 20 kgs ago, you would never have seen someone my size on that show. And like, any girl that was on that show that was a little bit on the chubbier side, your eyes are just drawn to them immediately because they stuck out. And it's like, this girl is literally skinny, and they have to sit around in their bikinis, and like, they sit around the pool, and like, they do all that shit.
Oh, okay. So you are still influenced by
yeah,
that.
they don't say it. They don't, they don't, nothing's said about it, but it's obvious that, there's 20 women in this house. They're all size 10s and 8s, and the one slightly bigger one is probably the only one I can relate to, and she's still like a good 40 kilos smaller than me. So it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's so hard to get away from it. And then you've got your TV presenters who all look fabulous, and of course they do. Like, you want to maintain a good image, but this goes into a completely different topic that we could go a whole deep dive into it. But I see a lot of representation of white people on New Zealand media, and it's getting better, but it's still not nearly close enough. But even the Pacifica and the Māori people on television are still pretty small. Like, they're still smaller than probably what the average person would. There probably wouldn't be a whole lot of people that could relate to them in terms of the way that they look. So, but at the same time, it's hard. It's like, what they themselves are under a lot of pressure, right? They've got to look a certain way because they're being on they're on the news, they're presenting, all this sort of stuff. Like, there's an expectation of them to look a certain way as well, so they conform to that. But then they perpetuate this narrative that we should all look stick thin, and so it's such a double-edged sword, eh? And also, I don't think I'd feel comfortable going on something like The Bachelor, like, in the way that I look. Yeah. Because I would get eaten alive, being like, oh, you're fat.
I can imagine. Same for me, because I'm not even in particular, like, I think I'm average anywhere I go to some degree. Maybe some smaller in some countries, but, even then, right? I wouldn't be comfortable going there. Okay, so since we're already on this topic, like, can you tell me a little bit more about the pressures you feel personally from society at large, and how that's made you feel about your body in general? Then.
Oh man, that's a big question. I don't know. I've always had a really strange relationship with the way that my body looks. Like, even when I was a 6-year-old, I remember I had a lot of friends that did aerobics and stuff, so they were always they were stick thin. But when you're a child, like, everyone's stick thin. There's nothing on you.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're the fat kid. Unfortunately, the fat kids always, got a bit of something on them. But, like, everyone's tiny because you're still a child and a child's body is small. But for some reason, and, like, I'll show you pictures of myself and you'll be like, how the hell do you think you were fat? But, like, I just felt chubby in my own body, and I don't know where that messaging came from, why I thought that way. Maybe it was just because I had friends that just were just stick thin and they did gymnastics and they were throwing themselves around the place. Like, I always just felt chubby, and the funny thing is I wasn't chubby, I wasn't large or anything like that until it was like my second year of uni, and I finally saw a picture of myself. I started doing blogging and stuff back when blogs were a thing. And I was taking, like, outfit pictures and stuff. And I think it was, like, I saw a couple of photos and, like, I was just like, holy shit, I'm really fat. Because I put on, they call it the Fresher 5, which is, like, 5 kgs.
We also have that in the Philippines.
Yeah, you go to university and you
Freshie
eat,
5.
You eat dorm food, and then
actually it's not even 5. We say, because we count in pounds, so it's like the Freshie 10.
Yeah,
10 pounds.
Yeah. Same sort of thing. You put on a bit of weight, and I saw photos of myself, and I was like, oh god, I look so fat, and it hadn't really clicked until then that the way I perceived myself wasn't the way I was, but I was now looking the way that I thought I looked, which is it's a real head messer where it's like, oh, I wasn't actually fat before. Now I'm really fat. And obviously over the years I've gotten larger and larger. But that is because I have a pretty terrible diet, to be fair. And my exercise is pretty down out there. So it's not like I'm not gymming every day. I'm not counting my calories sort of stuff. Like, it's bound to happen, obviously, with working and stuff like that. You can't expect people to be at the gym 24/7. Yeah, so it's, I guess I have a really strange relationship with that, because I think as I put on weight, I care less about it, but I care more about it, I think I care more because I'm worried where it's going, but I care less because it's like, well, I can't really get any, like, I'm already at the point of, like, fat, or, like, I'm beyond average now, so, like, no one's looking at me anyway. Does that make sense? Like, no one's gonna say anything, because, but
right.
I don't know, it's a strange one, eh?
Do you think that kind of, like, since you mentioned your experiences of perceiving yourself as bigger than you actually were, that sounds a little bit like body dysmorphia. Would you say you have it, or you had it? I don't know if I can see. Now I have the opposite of, like, I look in the mirror and I go, actually, I look pretty good. Like, I'm a little bit on the curvy side, but I feel curvy and I feel pretty good. But then I see photos of myself and I go, oh god, I look terrible from that angle, or I look terrible from this angle. But in the mirror, I'm like, I'm pretty good. I can rock this. Like, I've gone up a cup size, and I'm just like, my boobs look great. I love that.
And, like, can I just lose the other bits I don't like, but just keep the boobs? That would be nice. So I don't know. It's. I think I'll always have that. I think I'm always going to have some sort of body dysmorphia, but it's just a really strange thing that I didn't think was an issue until of that sort of weird shift of, like, wait, I thought I always looked like that. And then I look at old photos of myself and I go, wait, you looked fine. But when I was living that time, when I was that size, I was throwing myself to shreds. But now I'm the size I kept thinking I was, and now it just messes with your head. And I didn't think it would, because I didn't think it's something I had. So
Right.
yeah, it's a really tricky one, that one, eh?
Interesting.
There you go. There's my life story for you.
We love the story. Yeah, how about, let me see. Since you've shared a little bit, I wonder, for me, how do the pressures I feel? So I grew up, I mean, I'm still Asian down to the very core of it. And so in the Philippines, although we're not as I've mentioned, homogenous as other East Asian countries, for example, we do share a variety of different cultures and beliefs, and we respect those. But since we are so heavily affected by the media, I did experience a lot of pressure to keep up a certain weight, and I think as soon as you've given a person, at least from my own experience, and you've mentioned this a while ago, right? Like if you've been a certain weight for a certain amount of time, regardless of whether you look good in either form, the comment will always be, there's always going to be a comment about it, right? That oh, you've gained weight, or you've lost weight, or you're eating enough. And so I felt like, growing up, I felt like I could never really please anyone anymore, because I lose weight when I was considered quote unquote fat, and then they'd be like, do you have an eating disorder? Like, and I wasn't at that time, right?
There's almost like this happy medium that's impossible to maintain, right?
Yeah, and I was pretty healthy at that time, and so it was really unfair, because I felt like I had to always explain myself when I was fine, like I was just eating a little bit healthier. And the thing is, I grew up with a very unhealthy diet. It's I see that more and more nowadays that I've lived on my own and away from my family, but it's just a diet, a high fat, high sugar diet, and and we've come, although it's great to be to indulge once in a while, it's not great on a daily basis, because it does lead to disease if you're not careful. And it was showing on my blood work, so I knew I had to do something about it. Yeah. And I was very young. Can you imagine? I was in uni, just barely like 19, 20, and I was already like being warned about having very high sugar levels, and also high cholesterol. And so,
are they quite sensitive in the Philippines about that sort of stuff, though? Like overly sensitive?
What do you mean, or with the health
as in
stuff?
Like, oh, your blood sugar levels are really high, or whatever?
Not really. Maybe I think Japan would be more sensitive to that one, because
they are very sensitive. Eh?
They are. In the Philippines, not so much. It was just me on a personal level, because I'm very careful about my health. And so, and I do drag at that time, I was still living with my parents, and the culture in the Philippines is that, you're basically babied until you graduate, and sometimes even until you get married, right? And so at that time, I would always like, nag my parents to bring me to the doctor's office, because we don't have routine checkups, unlike here in Japan. Which I've perceived as, what I've come to know as normal in a lot of first world countries. Is that right? Like a yearly health check?
No,
Really?
The yearly health check is such a weird. A lot of people find it really strange, because we basically go and see the GP as soon as there's an issue. So, like,
so that's
for example,
us,
I'm having some sleep apnea at the moment, snoring a lot. Jonathan hates it. But I've been starting to get really bad blocked nose. Like, that would be a reason to go, if it was persistent, to go and see the doctor. But some people could go years without going to see a doctor, because, it's expensive. You still have to pay for it. It is subsidized, but you still have to pay sometimes, $20, $30 just to go see a doctor. So, for some people that's a lot of money. So they just won't go see the doctor. That accumulates to bad issues.
How about insurance, though? Does it still cost a lot of money despite being on insurance, for example?
No, so we don't have health insurance here. We have just a public health system. So we do have health insurance, but it's like an opt-in, and it pays for things like specialist treatments, and it puts you higher on the list for elective surgeries. That's like non-life-threatening surgeries. But in terms of like healthcare, if you have an accident, something happens, you have to go to the hospital, emergency care, you'd never pay for that.
That's insane.
Yeah, so we have a really good health system
Wow.
in for like accidents and all that sort of stuff. Like any accident, if you accidentally cut your hand at home or something, actually that's not a good example. If you, I have an injury that it's covered by something called ACC, the accident claims and something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Basically, I injured myself while I was figure skating, and it's left my some of my stuff in my back, and that's why I have to go see for physio, which is subsidized by ACC forever because of something that I did to myself. But
I see.
you know, yeah,
Interesting.
so it's always somewhat subsidized or covered, but
Yeah.
But if you just wanted to go see a physiotherapist and nothing actually happened to you,
Interesting.
you pay the full cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's generally the same in the Philippines where healthcare can be very expensive, and so we only go if we need to. But I think I was a funny child, right? I was very concerned about my health, which is great. It's just, and maybe it was intuition because it was pretty bad, right? The moment I did get checked. And I only learned that it wasn't a great diet because I remember I would get pressured into by my own parents because they think they perceive this as being healthy. For example, I try to cut back on the simple carbohydrates, which really spike your blood sugar, right? And they'd be like, you need that for your energy, blah, blah, blah. Like just, I feel like to some degree, I mean, I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but I think there's a lack, we lack certain education on the types of food that would be good for us in our bodies.
Yeah.
In any case, so yeah, the pressures were just, I don't know, they were everywhere. And so I can never really please anyone is what I felt. And I hit a very difficult time in my life where I was just so done with trying to impress or please people with how they perceived my body when I wasn't even happy with where I was, and just took so much energy to please so many people who can never be pleased, right? I lose weight and then I'm too thin. I gain weight and I'm too fat. Like, what else is there for me to do? And so at some point, like now that I've gotten older and also have, I'm living in a different country with different pressures as well, but I feel like I was able to identify which were my own pressures and which ones were being put on me by society or the society that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And and maybe it comes with age, maybe it doesn't, because I do know people who still struggle with it and they're in their late 30s. So I probably it's a journey it's a very unique journey for every single person. But I think what had helped with me is just to stop listening to what other people are saying and to just focus on what feels right for me and what my body thinks is a healthy space to be in. And I think that's very individual as well. And I don't think anyone should have the right to dictate how you should be like and what you should do with your own body, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is something recently I've been going to the gym a lot more, which is, this is a topic for another day. There's a lot of topics we can go into here, but
I know.
The reason I have many reasons why I find it really hard to go to a gym, but I find going to a gym really difficult. It's something new. There's like a lot of pressures. Obviously, it's kind of embarrassing, when you're a little bit chubbier and you get the gym and everyone's like freaking got their 6 packs and whatever. So going to the gym is quite intimidating for me. And also I hate exercising. I really don't like exercising. So, but this time I said, no, I'm gonna get the gym membership and I'm gonna go. And instead of putting the pressure on myself to be like, you're gonna do weights one day, you're gonna do cardio the next day, you're gonna burn this many calories, blah, blah, blah. My goal for this month has been just go to the gym. And that has been a challenge in itself because it's not something I've ever done. The other week I was doing gym Monday, skating Tuesday, gym Wednesday, skating Thursday, gym Friday. And I did all 5 days. And that for me was a huge achievement because I'd done like a good amount of calorie burning, like
Amazing.
Proper sweating exercise every single day of the week. And it was really good. And I was quite proud of myself just for doing
I'm so
that.
proud of you too.
Do you know what I do at the gym?
What do you do at the gym?
I go and I walk on a treadmill for an hour and I play solitaire.
But that's just getting your body
but
to move,
going,
whether it's
exactly
walking.
that's the main thing. Like, and Jonathan just he had to, like, because for him he's all or nothing. He's like, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, and it's gonna be like, I have to do it this way, otherwise I'm not gonna go.
Yeah.
And so he heard what I was doing and he was like, he had to stop himself and be like, I'm proud of you for going. Instead of being like,
really
that doesn't actually do anything. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is to go.
Oh, and no, I would like to counter that. I would disagree. And I think it does do something, because just walking is moving your body. And so even though the change won't be as great as, for example, if you ran that whole
exactly.
whole hour, but
Yeah.
it does wonders for your mental health as well, just walking, right?
Yeah.
And an hour is pretty long. Like, one of the recommended things that my therapist often tells me is to just get a walk for at least 15 minutes, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
And I also, the other thing too is, like, I bike to work every day. So I spend
That's
15
great.
minutes. I have 15 minutes biking, even though it's like a commute bike. It's not like a sweaty bike, but it's still 15 minutes biking. Then I bike to the gym on the way home. I go to the gym, work out for an hour, stretch, and then I walk, and then I bike home. So it's not like I don't get the physical exercise. It's just that, it's pretty light exercise for going to the gym. But I found that the more I've been going, the more comfortable I get, the more I've been pushing myself. So instead of just walking, the speed goes up or the incline goes up, and maybe I'll start running. No, I freaking hate running. It's never going to happen. But, like, if I feel like actually I want a bit more of a push, I just go and run on the exercise. I go and cycle on the exercise cycle, and I just push myself a little bit there, because that is an apparatus that I feel a lot more comfortable on and pushing myself on, because I just hate running. Who enjoys running? Like, it's just the worst exercise. I do figure skating, which is freaking mad. You're throwing your body into the air and
amazing.
Spinning around 100 times and getting super dizzy, and then trying to do fancy footwork. But I hate running.
They do say there's this thing called a runner's high, and I did experience this. I think you have to do it for a certain amount of time first. And then so don't hate on the runners who have the runner's high.
Look, I get it. Some people freaking love it. I mean, that's why marathons exist, right?
Yeah,
like, people just go mad for it. But
would you say that's how you manage yourself nowadays? Like getting the exercise that setting goals for yourself, like, and not be so intense about it. Is that how you think you're working around?
Yeah, I'm just trying to go 3 to even twice a week. Just twice a week after work, I'm just trying to do the bare minimum. Because getting to the gym is the hardest bit. Once I'm comfortable and once it becomes a routine, then that's easy. Once I'm already there, then I can, like, and once I feel more comfortable, I can sort of, like, start to do maybe some of the weights or some of the more intimidating machines and stuff like that. But and then there's, like, a food component to that as well. But I mean, it's like everyone, right? They start the new year and they go, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start my own business, and then I'm also going to solve the cancer and world hunger, and, like, they throw all these things on their plate and they're not going to get any of them done. So for me, it was like, I know what things I need to fix. Let's go to the gym first, because it doesn't matter how I eat. If I'm upping up my exercise, it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly trying to fix my diet as well, but there's a mental component to that as well. So I have to, like, completely retrain myself to think about food in a different way. Yeah. Which is really hard. Really hard.
And this is another topic I feel like we can talk about in a different episode, where just, like, there's so much to talk about, like, just general food habits.
Yeah.
And all of these
and, like,
things.
what's good, what's bad.
Yeah.
Maybe carbs versus fats versus keto versus diet culture. Oh my god, like, it's a whole freaking can of worms. But
yeah, like, I'm glad you're doing that, and I would agree that's actually something that has worked for me as well. Like, before I would always try to work with the things that, for example, physical fitness influencers or trainers would recommend, and at least the ones that I've followed were very restrictive and all or nothing. And I think as a type A personality, like it just pressured me so much that I ended up giving up midway for every single time. So I kept restarting. And so I realized this is not going to work out, and yo-yoing through my weight it's not going to help me nor anyone. No. And so I just decided to just sit with myself and just listen to my body. And so if I'm having a hard day, I'm just going to take a rest, and if I have a little bit more energy, I'm going to exercise. But something that I did put as a goal for myself is to exercise at least once a week. And I've been doing really good on that one. And it's been fun, to just pull myself. So I've been boxing. And
yes, I've heard. Oh,
yes, and it's a lot of fun. I do it with. It's become a social activity because I entered those classes with friends, and so it's both. I'm starting to reassociate exercise with something fun, because for the longest time, for years and years, for almost 20 plus years, I've associated exercise as punishment because of how, it was framed to me, right? It's a way to lose weight rather than a way to keep yourself healthy or have fun. Right. Yeah. So I'm starting to shift that, and that's how I've been maintaining it. And also just I'm very thankful for the eating would you say it's a culture, the eating culture that Japan has over here, where everyone here, let's not say everyone. So the general perspective here is to enjoy your food, to sit down and enjoy your food. And a lot of the food here is also really healthy. It's not all healthy, of course. There's still fast food categories, but a lot, like they're in general a little bit more healthy. The desserts aren't as sweet, and the food isn't always overpowering or would make you want to keep eating, for example, right? So
that's a good point. Yeah, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I've observed this, because I did notice that it was so much easier for me to just pace myself. It's also because there are also concepts in Japan where you should eat to I forgot the exact phrase, but to just 80% of your stomach capacity, because when you're super full, your body actually this is what they say. It works extra hard, and that's why you get sleepy. But anyway, putting that
aside, really interesting concept.
It's an actual thing. But putting that aside, disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I wouldn't know. But putting that aside, it's just I coming from the Philippines and with a busy culture, and also the hustle culture, right? And even America, where you eat and walk at the same time. Here it's a no-go, right?
Yeah. You frowned it.
Yeah, you're gonna be considered. I know you're gonna be considered like a heathen if you eat and walk at the same time. And I'm just
I get away with it because I'm white.
Okay. So I
still get the looks though. People are just like, "What are you doing?" I'm just like, "Oh,
I know.
Like me with coffees, takeaway coffees. That was me. I was just like sip, sip, and you just can't help it because it's just something I've always done. But,
I know. But so I do try it. I've assimilated to some degree, and it's helped me so much with my weight, or at least my relationship with food, because I just learned to just sit down and eat it, and eat to just enjoy it, versus me running around as I chomp on my burger.
And you end up eating more calories anyway, because you don't realize that you're doing it mindlessly, right? There's a whole idea of savor your food and enjoy it, because you won't just mindlessly eat it.
Yeah, which is huge for just, I suppose, listening to your bodily cues as well, and to enjoy the whole experience of the food. I feel like I've the level of my food, my expectation for how good or bad a food would be has changed a lot since coming here, which is another topic, because Japan is a wonderful culinary experience in itself. Like, so many good food.
Yeah,
the quality of food is so good. I know, the quality is so high.
Yeah,
anyway.
Like a cheap dirty meal, like a equivalent of like a $3-4 meal.
But there's fried chicken experience. Like Emily and I had a drunken night, and the first thing we thought of having as our quote unquote junk food is like a fried chicken at a convenience store.
Like $80 at that really fancy place.
Yeah,
and then we're just like, let's go get fried chicken.
After that, we were like, I'm still hungry. Let's go eat fried chicken outside. Yeah.
We went to a convenience store and just found, because convenience stores always have like hot ready food, like pork buns. That was the other thing that I got into was drunk nights and then pork buns.
Yeah.
You got me into that habit actually. Is after that really.
Oh no, I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
You got me into that. Like, I mean, it's a thing here we're doing in New Zealand anyway. Is like as soon as we get home, you have to eat, especially if you've been drinking. Warning, sorry. Which is our culture. But like to always eat something fatty in that because it sits in your stomach and the alcohol absorbs. Well, the food absorbs the alcohol, and then you don't feel as drunk the next day. But it's really important that but like the next day you'll just eat Macca's or you'll eat something fried because you just want to eat comfort food.
Right. Yeah. That was
so
funny anecdote.
I continued that, but instead of it was out drinking, and then it was a pork bun on the way home. Oh, so good.
So funny. So good. All right, so it's been almost 15 minutes of us talking. How about we wrap up now?
Yeah, that's probably enough of that topic for one day.
I know, like I think we can just keep talking about it. So let's just wrap this topic up for now. So as our final note of this episode, since we give notes at the end of each episode, what would you say helped you with dealing with societal pressures and expectations on your body as a woman, Emily?
Knowing that it's all fake.
Right.
It's all fake, and it's to maintain what you see on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's just not possible. Listen to your body, eat great food and enjoy it, and do exercise. Like, that's all it is to it. Like, yeah, that's my advice to people, is to do the bare minimum and be happy with the way you are.
Right. Great. I love that. And it's the same for me. Like, how do you say? Just being happy with who you are and what you're built with, I think is key. Self-acceptance is key because every single person is very different. Even people from the same family will have very different, physiological reactions to certain things. So you should always perceive, and this is what's worked with me, is to just perceive every single thing as an individual thing. And so if it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. You don't have to adhere to what everyone else is doing. So just so what's helped with me is to just listen to my own body and letting that guide me along the way. And usually it leads you to be less, exhausted. So that's definitely helped to stop listening to what people are saying about my own body and to just start listening to what my body is telling me about my own body.
Exactly.
Yeah, just not giving a shit about what other people are saying anymore, I think is what helped me the most, cause I think that's what affected me the most at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I dealt with it, and I'm doing pretty good nowadays. Of course, I'm still affected once in a while, like if I get that side comment from from someone in my past, right, saying like I've gained weight or lost weight. It does sting once in a while, but it's just, you know what, I'm the healthiest I've ever been, and so I'm not gonna listen to you. Thank you for your comment. Goodbye.
Yeah, what do you care? I've seen you how many times in the last 10 years?
Yeah, and so just don't just listen to yourself and less to other people, and I think it's gonna do wonders for your mental health and also for your body as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining us for almost an hour of us talking about our experiences as women and with our bodies and all of the pressures that we experience. We hope that to some degree, some of the experiences that we've shared will help you feel a little bit less alone in this experience, and maybe some of the tips that we noticed that have helped with us can help you as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We're excited to see you again for our next episode.
Yeah, exciting. Oh, thank you very much. And I guess we'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.